It's time to start the coup of the century, not by fighting O&D, but by teaming up with them to figure out the secrets of Lumon. Hello and welcome to The Road Goes Ever On and On. Today, Sterling and I are talking about the 6th episode of the hit Apple TV show, Severance. And you don't need to start a coup to enjoy our content. All you have to do is hit that like and subscribe button, turn on that bell for notification, spoilers ahead, and with that, let's talk about crazy Mrs. Selvig.
Holy crap. I mean, I think we can safely say that her name is definitely Miss Cobel.
Yes,
and
Cobel.
and Miss Cobel, and that Selvig is just a disguise, which I kind of believe that, but like,
Right.
who knows? Maybe she was using her real name on the outside, and Cobel was a fake name. There's so much that we learned in the first like 5 minutes. This was wild. My head exploded.
I know, blink
this.
and you miss it. There was so much information in such a brief snippet of time.
Talk about show don't tell. Like they were, and it's something that like you would have to go back and rewatch in order to really pick up on some of the nuances, because there were some really interesting nuggets that were, some of them that were openly placed, but you just don't have a lot of time to look at them.
Right.
Some of them that are tucked in with like so much information, it's just tough to take that all in one go. And then there was even some outright hidden stuff that I expect most people wouldn't see. But what did you see?
So we saw that she went to Myrtle Egan School for Girls. So we, if you think about this whole Lumon thing, they've got schools, they produce a lot of things, which I think we see in O&D later. We'll talk about how they're producing all these different materials.
They have a town named after their founder. Like,
yes.
A bunch of people live in Kier.
Right. So we saw that she went to school, so like the brainwashing went deep with her early on in age. I noticed there was a hospital wristband, and it said, so we saw on her graduation plaque that it was Harmony Cobel.
Right.
But on the medical bracelet, it said Charlotte, and it looked like the end of Cobel. So I'm assuming Charlotte is her mother.
Yeah, and it was 1944 was the date of birth.
Right.
So I definitely think that's probably her mother.
And I wonder if she, being Harmony, is almost like a bastard of the Egan clan, and her mom died giving birth to her, and that was her thing, and her whole plan is to infiltrate the Egans. But I might be,
she seems like she's drunk the Kool-Aid, like
she has.
So if she's putting up a front, like some of the stuff she's doing is in the privacy of her own home. And sometimes shows do this, like they do sometimes do this, like when they're poorly written and they're trying to throw you off, they'll have like somebody who's pretending to be good, and you see them pretending to be good, like doing something in their own house, like when nobody's watching, and when you find out the big twist, it's like, you wouldn't have done that, Like they'll get shocked when they see something, like, oh, and it's like with nobody watching. It's like, no, you wouldn't have done that with nobody watching. So unless this is bad writing, we have seen moments of her alone, kneeling in front of what looks like an altar and saying these things that sound kind of like Sunday school things, and things that she's memorized over time that she's saying, unless they have cameras installed and she knows that, and so she's like keeping up appearances. I do think that she's,
I think it's more of she's trying to prove herself to the Egan name, like because she is maybe born out of wedlock. That's what I'm assuming.
So I don't know if you noticed, like the very, very beginning when we saw her in what I assume is her bedroom, it's a very sparse room. There's like white painted, large like cinder block size type,
Yeah.
like not brick, but like cinder block size. The bed is a single bed. It's a very simple metal frame. You know, this isn't anything nice. There's the whole room is very Spartan. There's a bedside table that has what I assume is a setup for bathing. So there's like a bowl with a water pitcher and like a towel in the bowl. So it's like you pour the water into the bowl,
Right.
you know, add soap, whatever, and then like get the towel wet and then like rub yourself down, which is friggin' weird in this world.
Right.
And then as she's right before we see her leave that room, we see what look kind of like prison bars.
Right. Like when I saw this room, I was thinking Arby's room because even that same it was like that one fluorescent light bulb that like
Right.
you don't keep in a room that you're usually like sleeping in like right above your bed. Like it felt very much like a prison.
And it felt very much like indoctrination because above that light is some type of like framed thing that has, you know, probably some quotes from like there was writing on it. You know, it wasn't a picture. So it's probably Lumon or Egan writing, you know, that
Right.
she kind of lives by at this point. But then the rabbit hole gets wilder because when she goes into the other room that has like the candles and she kneels, I could make out some writing on the left side of the cabinet, but it was very tough to see. So snapped the picture, uploaded it to Google Photos, and then just like cranked up the brightness and like the contrast and did all this stuff to kind of see the room better. And she has posters on the walls that look like they were made by like handmade by a child, you know, like either cut out letters or like hand painted. Each poster had one of the 9 is it virtues?
I think it's principles, yeah.
Thank you. So one of them had benevolence on it. So it looked like there was like one to the left, and then there were 2 to the right. So his benevolence was to the left, to the right was probity, and to the right of that was wiles. And when she said these words, the 9 values, there was a word between benevolence and probity, and I did think I saw like a corner behind the cabinet. So it did look like there was a poster behind there, which would mean that there would probably 9 of these posters that it looks like she made when she was a child, and she still has them up, each of them for a different one. The benevolence one was the most interesting. It was really tough to see what was on like probity and wiles, but the benevolence one had the side of a person's head, and it had what looked like the beard, so it looked like it was Kier Egan. And there was what looked like kind of rays coming out of it, like light. We do know that he believes in illumination beyond all, so it did look like illumination was coming out of his head. And there were some words written on the illumination. Some of them were obscured, so I couldn't see the whole thing. But it said, "You're my mouth and..." So in the last episode, it did reference that Kier speaks to us through the handbooks and through the paintings and through other ways. So maybe they are also his mouth and they somehow speak his words. Who knows? I don't know. And then there were also underneath the head, there were hands reaching out to him. And this one was once again on benevolence. So I thought that was wild that she has these things. She's also got like the pigtails, which...
Right. Very childlike.
Very childlike.
It's like, it's almost like a state of innocence when she becomes Mrs. Selvig, almost.
Yes. The cabinet had on top of it the Lumon logo, you know, what looks like some type of like liquid drop, possibly water, I don't know, but it looks like a drop of liquid. And then there were interesting things in the cabinet, you know, like there was a ticket to the Kiernival.
Kiernival, yes. I saw the ticket to a Kiernival, so they like praised this guy. This, like,
Yes.
they threw a whole Now, do you think that he threw the carnival, or people threw it for him?
I potentially think that I don't think that she was around when he was necessarily around, so I think
Right.
it's probably like continued to be thrown in his name.
Gotcha.
I don't know if it's like yearly or something like that. Who knows? I assume that was her ticket. But then there were also other interesting things, like there was on the bottom right-hand side, there was a jester.
Whoa.
On the
Frolic.
bottom left-hand side, Frolic, there was the goat, Malice. On the top right-hand side, there was what looked like a young woman, Woe. And then on the top left-hand side, it wasn't a lady dressed in black. So, but I still think it was Dread because it was creepy AF. The the lady had a hand, and it looked like there were hands coming out of her fingers.
Oh. See, yeah, I missed all of
Um,
that. Good
so
spot.
holy crap, there was just it. It was wild seeing this whole thing. To me, she's like indoctrinated since birth, and
Oh, yeah.
this is her life.
Right. Well, I mean, we even
And
saw when she yelled at Mark, when, was yelling at Mark about taking Helly, and just like, you don't even know what you would do for Kier, Papa. Like, just goes off on him like a
right,
crazy person. Like, somebody said, your religion is not real, and just crazy.
right. Well, like I think he finally says for the first time, like, "What do we do?"
Right. He
And
asks
she
it.
says, "Serving Kier," and she
Right.
yells it like it's like you should know that serving Kier is what we do.
Right.
That that is the wildest answer. Like,
And
what do we do here? We serve Kier.
And that's kind of what Bert said when, they made it all the way down to O&D, and they were kind of like, well, we got to figure out what's going on. And they're like, well, yeah, well, but we got to keep doing the work. The work's important. And they're like, what is the work? What
What
is it?
right?
What do we need baby goats for? I do like that they're like planning, like, okay, so Bert, the head of optics and design, Mark, the head of MDR, they're gonna go find the goat guy's head, and they're like slowly gonna piece everything together.
Right.
Like,
Right. They're gonna Scooby Doo it,
yeah.
And
Oh, shucks.
little do they know that that Miss Cobell has like let the leash out on purpose a little bit. I
Right.
think specifically so she can snap it back and let him know that he's on a tight leash.
Yeah, we saw that they added the lock doors to their
That
building.
was wild.
I when when Grainer was asking her, like, oh, we set it up, do you think it's going to be necessary? She was like, yes, we gotta rein him in. And I was so bummed, because like seeing Mark with Helly and Dylan and Irv in their first scene when they're all talking, and Helly's kind of, like, okay, maybe Mark is on my side. Like, I was like, yes, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
We're getting to a positive light. We're going to figure out this Lumon situation. Like, even Irv, he's like, oh, I have to object. And they're like, okay, cool. What, like, just continuing on. I thought that was a great moment for their characters, and now it's just all been turned upside down again.
Oh yeah. And when they got to O&D, so there's a ton of these things, and I thought they kind of looked like 3D printers, and then we
I
actually, like, from the last episode, and then we saw on the inside that every single one of them has a watering can.
Right.
Weird. And apparently the last week they were making hatchets.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Which,
It
are the hatchets printing metal too? So, like, are they making full-blown hatchets? Or are they just like sharp filament? These are
right.
the questions where my brain went.
it's it's wild. Like this episode, at first when I first watched it, there was some weird stuff in the beginning. It was tough to like. I saw what I thought were like the bars, and I was like, that's weird. But I thought it was kind of pretty surface level. And then I was going through it with the fine tooth comb, and I was like, they've hidden a lot in this episode.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I didn't notice until now that management has the black cards. So
Oh, I don't think I saw that management had black cards.
yeah,
Okay.
so management has black cards. We know that macro data has blue, O&D has green. Those cards that Dylan found
Yes.
were interesting.
What are those?
I'm wondering. So they were not explicit.
Right.
So it looked like fighting to me.
Right.
But what if it's like really weird ritualistic dancing? Like this thing is like cult-like.
Right.
And I wonder if there is more to it than just what we see. Or what looks obvious.
Well, what's interesting to me about those cards is that Milcheck thought it was gone. Like, it thought it left Lumon. So,
Yes.
is this a way to get communication out?
Pictionary, baby.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, they might be codes. Like, maybe it's ritualistic dancing that have symbols that mean words. Because Milcheck thought it was gone.
Right. And so like maybe what I was thinking is that could be the way that you can get information through is by some type of like describing through actions.
Right.
Versus like using actual letters. So I definitely thought that was wild.
Yeah, and Milcheck did seem like so at first I thought they might have been messages from Optics and Design, like they were making these to send out to whoever. But Milcheck seemed to know about them, so it seems like it's whatever those cards are part of some plan that Milcheck is a part of.
Right. Could he be Petey's best friend? Could he be the man on the inside? Because it does seem like people have different, like management isn't all on the same page. And
Right.
I still think that Petey had somebody above to help him out in order to get
Right.
that tape recorder. Because that doesn't seem like something you could easily get on your own. Could be wrong about that. And we know that Petey has a friend we don't know about.
Right. We found some crazy news out today that they can turn on and off the Severance at any moment.
Oh my goodness, that blew my mind.
That I was flabbergasted when I saw that. But he called somebody to turn it off, or to turn the Severance back off. So I don't know if he is Petey's friend. Now, I did think of somebody that could have been Petey's best friend.
Okay.
That who he was referring to, and he might not be working with anybody on the inside, even though he must be because he had that tape recorder. But I was thinking maybe his daughter June.
Okay.
That might have been who he was referring to as his best friend. Like Mark literally has
now that
no
he
best
knows
friend.
his whole life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
I could see something like that.
maybe, but it still doesn't explain how he got that recording, and I don't think he could have got that on his own.
Miss Cobell has a rock solid cover story. She, she runs some kind of like wellness shop where she has salves and teas, and then she did actually. It seems like she knows legitimate nursey type information and brought a legitimate salve, to Mark's sister. Now that could just they've got huge resources, so I believe that they could have set up a solid cover story. and to some extent, I kind of wondered if she does actually have a shop, because she did say to Mark at one point, like, "Come by my shop and I'll get you that whatever,
Right.
that tea." I think, you know. So
Right.
it did kind of make me wonder, like, what if he took her up on it?
Hmm.
So maybe they do have, and it wouldn't be hard for somebody else to run the shop. And the rare time that somebody comes by, it's like, oh, she stepped out. You know, she'll be back
Right.
at this time, and then they call her up and she swings in. So, but I did kind of wonder if that was just like straight up a front and didn't exist, or if they were kind of fronting. And it does seem like she does know about this stuff.
Right. Hmm.
She was also really good with the child.
Yeah, that's what I
And
I
yet,
had noticed.
we don't know that she did have a husband, or she at least claimed to.
Right.
That could have been a lie.
I mean, nothing showed in that altar that she had any like affiliation with a husband. So I don't know if she's ever been married. Plus, they
Right.
always call her Ms. Cobell.
Right.
It's not
Yes.
Mrs. Cobell, it's Ms. Cobell.
Right.
Hmm.
By the way, it blew my mind that Miss Kacey is a part-time innie.
Yes. And she got sent to the break room.
Right.
And I feel like that, you know, I don't. When she talked about last episode, when she was saying that I want to try something with Miss Kacey, I think she knew Mark was going to
Push it.
and she was going to punish Miss Kacey for Mark, because she said to Mark, "Who will you not go to the break room for?" Like, she knows that
Right.
Mark is such a softie that he's willing to like take the break room for anyone. And so I
Right.
think she
And-
used Kacey to make that point.
But then she points out, like, that's not one of the 9 principles.
Right. It's admirable, but not one of the.
Speaking of the 9 principles, and I'm sorry I keep going to this, but I feel like I keep seeing like these little things, right? The painting, the taming of the 4 tempers.
Yes.
What is, I assume it's Kier.
Right.
What is he taming the 4 tempers with?
A cat of 9 tails, and there's 9 principles. Oh my gosh, that painting is the painting. That painting has all the secrets. That's crazy. So when Mark was reading the book from Rickon and they're talking about a photograph, I thought that was such a great choice of a metaphor to use, because the photograph has been the catalyst to get Mark on this journey. The photos with PD started it. You know, we had the maps on the photos. He had photos with PD. Then they had to take photos with Helly when she arrived.
Yeah.
One thing we actually have never brought up that I have noticed a lot: why is Milcheck taking so many pictures? So, like, remember when Mark was reading the announcements, he was taking pictures. There was a part. Why is he taking all those pictures?
I don't know. I mean, I think we know that, like, the pictures when there's somebody new, that's written in the handbook.
Right.
We know that because we found out that Mark took them out too soon.
Right.
So those are definitely legit, but I don't know about the other ones. But it could be that those are legit as well.
But, like, when Mark's reading his thing, he takes like 20 pictures. Like, what are you gonna do with 20 pictures of Mark S standing in the room reading a thing? That's what I'm very complex by this.
That was it was a weird moment, and it kind of looked like a dad with pride, you know, that it's like, oh, my son is now an Eagle Scout, like, let me take a picture, you know, because this was like his first announcement, you know, and it's like, oh, let me take these pictures. he is somebody who definitely knows how to show the right look, because when he was talking in the last episode with Mark about do you know how to show kindness with your eyes, I have actually felt like Mr. Milcheck, of everybody that's there, honestly does have very kind eyes. Like when he
Yeah.
has got such a soft voice, he looks like he has so much warmth and happiness
Right.
when he's talking to people, which you know that he also has a strong fist behind him. And so it kind of makes it seem like after when he made that comment, it did make me wonder if it's a great act. And he just knows how to, like, he's supposed to portray this and he knows how to portray it.
Yeah, I feel like that was really summed up real well in the second episode when Helly's trying to talk about herself and he's like, "Give me the ball," and he gets like real stern with her, and then like right after he's finished, like kind of being like setting the rules down, he's like, "Now let's go get them melons. That melons ain't gonna eat themselves." Like instantly, he can like flip it so quickly.
Right. Going back to kind of what you said about the book from Rickon.
Yes.
I actually really liked that passage as well, because we said it the last episode, but I think it rings a little bit more true, where it's so silly, but to somebody that hasn't read literature, when he was reading about, it was like camaraderie or something like that, you know? And it was, I think that was making him feel things for his team and like realizing that like we can do something as a group.
Right.
And it's wild seeing such a silly work of literature having such a profound effect, you know, just all of these things that you've heard these kind of like crazy phrases and they're like, okay, that's such an eye roll, but to somebody that hasn't, it does make you think. And you kind of see that, and it's amazing how impactful it is.
Right, yeah.
I know that this was pointed out by somebody else, but I still wanted to point this out just because I thought it was an interesting phrasing, and so it really made me wonder. When Irving corrected Mark and said that it was illumination beyond all, I have no clue what that means, but that is very specific, and that's not the same as as illumination above all.
Huh.
And I think there's meaning to that and a very specific reason for that choice of words, you know, beyond instead of above. I'm going to keep poking around at that because it seems like there's something there.
I did catch, you know, there was the slip up, but I didn't think anything of it. But actually, now that you say it, like, this show has been very smart and very critical about the details that they add. And I don't think that they would do something like that without that intention. Like, I do think there is probably a hidden meaning for it.
Especially the fact that Mark misspoke it so that Irving could point it out, which kind of like really put like a red flag on it. You know, because that is a weird way to phrase that, because it does sound like above all else, I want illumination, but it's not above all.
Maybe
I just thought that was weird.
Maybe above all, because they're in the basement, has illumination above all.
No, but it's illumination beyond all.
Oh, right.
It's weird.
That is weird.
And then the last thing I noticed, well, briefly, kudos on the neighbor wife being pregnant. Or being severed.
Being severed.
Yes. Brilliant. Like, I didn't think about that at all. And when you said it, it was like, oh, that reminds me that there was actually a report about this. So when Mark's sister was looking up information about her, there was an article that said that her husband is a senator and like the leading person pushing for legalizing severance. And there
Yes.
was even an interesting picture of it. Like we saw him in a couple articles. One of the pictures was taken by Kier Life magazine. So Kier
Of
has their
course.
own magazine that they
They have
distribute, of course.
everything.
But then one of the pictures, and it looked like a picture that was like probably taken in the Senate. He had his fist raised in the air, which is just kind of a interesting thing to do.
Right.
You know, like that can be a sign of protest, it can be a sign of solidarity,
Right.
it can be a sign of, you know, power without actually threatening somebody because you're not pointing
Right.
your fist at the person, but you are showing that you have strength.
Right.
Like it was just a weird thing to see.
Right. One thing that I noticed about the whole birthing situation, that his sister just gave birth to a new life, is also symbolic because I feel like we have a birth of a new Mark. Ever since that baby's been
Yeah,
born, Mark has been very different. Like, he's helped Helly out
very different.
afterwards. We saw him even on the date with the girl, and it seems that he's even curbed his alcoholism because they came up to order with him, and he was
Right,
just like, I'm fine with water. He did still
right.
have a couple beers at the show later, but he
But
still,
he didn't seem wasted.
and he seemed more comfortable with her. He seems like a brand new Mark, and maybe that's part of the any Mark falling for Helly, and that he's getting more of that confidence of feeling that acceptance. Sorry to go on that tangent, but I did find it interesting that we found that guy who is the senator that is passing force. It's what how is it described? Forced severance
Is that what it was?
is no.
I think it said he was like legalized severance,
It was just
which I
legalized
don't
severance.
understand because is it illegal?
So that's why I thought it was. I think it was forced legalized separation or legalized forced severance.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember now. It was very tiny on that computer.
Yeah.
But the fact that we see that some senator who was having his wife that was pregnant severed while she was having her baby, we know that they can turn severance on and off. It isn't location. They can probably set it up
Right.
to location, but it can be on and off. What is the main goal of a senator like that with severance? Like what would his options be? Like he could control people in a way.
Right. And that I mean that could be like the last of the value wiles, you know, which is all about kind of using your cunning to control other people.
I mean,
Um,
I bet he's working for Lumen. You know, he's
right.
probably paid by Lumen.
Bare minimum, he's probably getting money from them, you know? Like
Right.
whether or not he like believes in them, it's like they are helping fund his campaign, so he's going to push for what they want, you know?
I
But I
mean,
could also see that he's using parts of it, like
right.
maybe he was the one who pushed to have his wife severed for some nefarious reason.
I mean, he must be on board with it for that, you know, a little bit that he would have his wife being severed when it's such a taboo topic that, you know, most people only get severed for going to work, and he's just severing her for maybe the whole pregnancy. Like, she's just like, maybe she wanted to be severed, doesn't want to go through pregnancy, just says, I don't want to remember it, just want to have the baby.
Oh yeah. I think next episode Dylan is going to like come back with whole new information. Like
Right.
he saw his closet, he saw his son,
Yes, that called him daddy.
and yes.
So he
And if he's
knows.
smart enough to pick up on this, while he didn't actually take the thing through the elevator, he might connect the dots and be like, Mr. Milcheck thought I took it through the
Right.
elevator, which means that maybe we can get information that way. Like, this could be the start of them talking about that and getting something out to the world.
That I mean, yeah, that's what I would think that would happen. Do you think that do you think so when I saw Dylan's Audi, it's like when he was talking to Milcheck, they were like good friends. You know, it was like not good friends, but like you have to think of like how was Milcheck able to just go in there, speak to
Is
Dylan.
Mr. Milcheck Dylan's Mrs. Selvig?
Oh.
Is he
Oh.
the nosy neighbor? Not nosy, like helpful neighbor, but also like sometimes needing help so that he can check in.
I still think Mr. Milcheck
How do you get in
was
somebody's closet?
well, because I think what kind of like with Milcheck and Helly outside when she was coming out, you know, he just talks to her in that soft voice, like
Oh, that's right. Helly knows. So they might all know. Like he might be the person that checks them all in.
right. So that's where I'm thinking he came to Dylan and he was like, "Hey, Dylan, I have a couple questions for your any. Do you mind if we go somewhere like a closed off space?" He's like, "Oh, I'm watching my kid right now. I
Right.
can't. I'm
Okay.
and that's why they did the counting thing. Because
That makes sense.
afterwards, when Dylan got up, he was just like, "We good here?" Because
We
like
good? Yeah.
you know, if it was a Mrs. Selvig thing, and he woke up in that closet, that would be really weird. Like, why are you in my closet? How did you get
Well,
here?
I assume they went in there knowingly as the Audi.
Oh, okay. Still a little
So I
strange
it's
thing to happen. So
very strange.
I
Yeah.
think he was just
Okay,
like
that makes
friends with
sense.
him.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I get that.
But I feel like since Dylan, who's wanted to know about his Audi for so long, now knows that he has a kid on the outside, it's gonna change Dylan forever on the inside.
Right.
He's been kind
I
of
think
like the
that
one that's like not ready to go, but I think he's gonna be gung ho.
I think so too.
And with that, I think that brings our journey to an end. On the Road Goes Ever On and On. Join us next week as we watch episode 7 of Severance. Thanks a lot for watching.
Thanks.